Welcome to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke, and today's guest is Gwenda Smith. She is a healer, a medium, and a channel, and she's internationally recognized and registered in spiritual mentorship. Her work involves guiding others on how to be in divine union so they can know their life's purpose as well as what happens when they die. Gwenda, welcome to the program.
Hi, Johnny. Thank you very much. Great to be here.
What does it mean to be registered in spiritual mentorship?
Well, these days, a lot of people want that famous piece of paper. And also when you go and achieve a certain level of something, you have a certificate. In this case, for the kind of work that I do and to have it really recognised in a more formal way, I became a registered and recognised practitioner through the International Institute of Complementary Therapies, which allows me, and they actually gave me the title of spiritual mentorship. And really it's for that recognition so that it's not something that you've plucked out of the air or you've just decided that this is what I do.
You just decided that last week.
Yeah.
I get it. Good. And so you have been a seer since you've been 4 years old?
That's my earliest memory.
What was that like? I mean, what kind of things did you see to begin with?
Oh, what was it like then? My gosh, the only word that comes to mind is scary as a 4-year-old. And I had the classic sense of there being a monster under the bed. I was certain there was something under my bed that was frightening, terrifying. I can remember running across my room and leaping. I get to a certain area of the room and leap to my bed and blankets just straight up over my head. And I used to tell my parents that there was a monster under my bed. And when I was, in my 40s, my mum then announces that she used to see the same thing under her bed. And yet when I was a child, they were like, oh, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So it was scary. And then I would see what I'll call images of see-through people around family or out at the shops. And I didn't know what they were. I didn't know what I was looking at that. Well, this part of me didn't know, but obviously my soul part did.
Okay. So you were able to see spirits and things like that when you were young?
Very much so.
Which is pretty common amongst mediums and empaths. I hear that quite a bit.
Yeah.
So how did you learn to actually harness this ability and actually make it work for you?
That's a great question because to me it seems to have naturally evolved and naturally grown as I have in this incarnation. It's just come along as a normal part of my life. And when I started to hear them in a way that I could understand and know that they were bringing a message for someone nearby, I learnt very quickly that it wasn't really a good idea to share what they were saying. That didn't win me many popularity votes. In fact, it caused me a lot of problems at school. So I learnt just to be with them and not share it until I was, 18, 19, and I met a lady that was, she called herself a psychic, and she said to me, oh my gosh, you are going to be so powerful. And I said, in what way? Playing hockey? And she said, no, because I used to play hockey at the time. And she said, no, with your abilities, why aren't you working with them? And I said, what do you mean? And she said to me that it wouldn't matter where I was in the world, that I would always have this contact with spirit. So then I started to dedicate more time to actually talk to them, find out what they wanted, and my encounters with angels. So it went from there. And then my sister actually set me up for the first time that I would do what you would call readings for people. She invited me to her place, saying that she'd invited this fellow medium to come along and do readings for people. So I roll up and waiting. No man appears, and all these other people had arrived. And I said to her, what time is he supposed to be here? And she said, oh, he's not. You are. And that was it.
Talk about being put on the spot. So you mentioned a few moments ago messages.
Mm.
Now, this may have happened when you were younger, or maybe it was more towards your teen years, but what were some of the messages that you did receive, and what did they want?
Most of the time, what they wanted, as they still do now, is for their loved ones to know where they are, that they are okay. And I know for people that sounds like, oh, what a cliche, oh, they're okay, they're all right. But they really do say those words. Let them know that I'm okay. Let them know that where I am is amazing. And of course, for those still in this world, and especially if they're not open to it, they're like, well, how can it be amazing? So that's typically their want. It's really to help those that are still in this world to have more peace at their loss. Then there are others that have wanted things known about how they died, like a young man that was pushed off a bridge here where I live, and he wanted it known that he did not jump, he did not fall, he was pushed. He showed me that he'd been attacked, he'd been in a fight with two other fellas, and he wanted his family to know that. So when they come through and they have really different messages, like that sort of thing, it's tough. But it's what I've been told a number of times by Spirit, this is your job, you need to do it.
All right. Now, the person that was pushed off a bridge, were the conspirators, or should I say the assailants, were they ever caught?
Yes, they were. The only thing they were charged with was assault.
You were saying that the two people, the two fellows that pushed that man off of the bridge, did your reading or your vision, did that help them be brought to justice, or was that someone else?
What happens, and I really find this amazing, is that the Spirit, in this example, that young man, he will find someone he can connect with. In this case, it was me, and he will show me what was done so I can see what took place. And through our combined power of thought, we can actually create the right kind of moves, if you like, from the police, or the right kind of investigation for them, and even find perhaps what you might say the right officer, because some police just find it very easy to sign a case off as, well, this is what it was, and they're not really willing to go that little bit more, where you will get someone else that goes, no, something's not right about this, and they'll keep looking. So what Spirit does, and I love the world of Spirit, the power is immense, but we have that power too. So when we can combine, then through that energy, I can call out that particular police officer, if you like, to get them to take action on what they just know something's not right. And they'll persist.
It's almost like you're like a psychic detective.
I have been.
It's not just seeing a vision, it's actually using it for a good purpose.
Yes, always, always.
So you mentioned angels a moment ago.
Yeah.
Angels, guides.
Yeah.
Were most of the beings, the spirits that you were in touch with, were they in that realm? Or were they just like all over the place?
Do you mean the soul of people that have passed were in that realm?
Everybody.
It is a little bit like minestrone soup. But no, not everybody is in that realm of what I'm going to term as heaven, because even spirit or the soul of people will refer to heaven and they call it amazing. But no, I've had encounters with other things, other beings, other entities that are not in that realm, far from it. So it's been, that's why I say it's a bit like minestrone soup. But the angels and the guides, oh, they are just incredible, absolutely incredible. The sensation that you get from them is nothing short of pure love, and it is intense. It's amazing. Their energy is inexplainable. It's simply divine. It's the best I can say about it.
These encounters, are they visual as well? Like you can actually see what they look like?
Oh, yes. Yes, for me, I have the privilege, the humbling privilege of being able to see, hear, smell, sense, taste, even when it comes to spirit. So, yes.
There seems to be some overlap between star beings and angelic beings, and some speakers have actually told me angels are actually star beings.
There are many different levels of angel. Maybe for some seers or some people that have interacted with them, they will come through in a way that sits well for that person. So they could say that they are a star being, which some people will also say we are all star beings, we are all star seeds and so forth. Really, Johnny, I think that it is down to how people use language, what language is about. I have never had that kind of language used by the angels or the guides when I've interacted with them, but I am familiar with there being several different levels of angel. And then you have the masters that sit as well. So I think it's more how other people use the language.
Besides the example you gave us about the man that was pushed off the bridge, what other experience with spirit really kind of stands out?
Oh, so many, so many. I do love these two, actually. A gentleman that came through one day when I was sitting in a house with a lady, and I'd explained that it needed to be only her and I home, no one else. So we're doing the session, and all of a sudden it sounded like somebody had gotten in the pot cupboard in the kitchen and was throwing the pots everywhere. It was so loud. And in fact, it startled both of us. It broke my channel. And I looked at her and said, I thought we were the only ones in the house. And she was terrified. And she said, we are. And I said, oh, okay. So let me just see what's going on out there. So I started to hone in on the energy to go through the house. And this man appeared in spirit in a beautiful emerald green cardigan, old-fashioned cardigan. He had gorgeous brown pants on and polished shoes. And he stood in the doorway and said, oh, so you can actually see me. And I said, yes, I can see you and I can hear you. And he said, well, what have I got on? So I described what he was wearing and he said, very good. So finally, I have someone to talk to. And he was really cranky because his son wasn't doing the right thing with his will. And the other son wasn't doing what he wanted with some of his belongings. And he wasn't prepared to leave until that was known. And that was a really interesting encounter. The other one was that stands out that I must share is my own nephew, Jack. The encounter with Jack was very different. So Jack decided that he'd had enough in this world and couldn't be here anymore. And this is only 2 years ago. He was 28, and you would have thought he had everything to live for, but apparently not for him. So after he was gone, my sister said to me, is Jack still here? And I said, no. I'd been looking for him because of the way he left this world. I was concerned about him and where he was. So I looked for him and there was no sign of him, no sign. And I said to my sister, no, he's fine. He's where he needs to be. And she said, I don't think he is. His mates keep reporting that his music comes on, their bedroom lights come on. One is saying that he's sitting on his bed. And I said, I think they're in really deep grief for him because I don't see him and I don't feel him. But there was someone in my house and I couldn't see them. And I would say to them, I will send you away if you don't tell me why you're here and show yourself. Nothing. There'd been nothing, gone. It took for me to go to the other side of Australia and to feel like somebody pushed me into a shop several weeks later. And this card for a medium was like it came off the wall at me. Like, why do I need a card for a medium? So I did what was coming through and contacted her. And funnily enough, she had a session available that afternoon, which was, even she said, very odd. And she started the session and straight away she jumped out of her skin and she said, "Oh my gosh, you've got a young man here who just pushed the wet towels off the side of the table here." Now, if anyone's seen Ghost, that was depicted very well in that it takes them a lot of energy and they actually have to learn how to move objects because they go through things. And Jack was able to push these wet towels off and frighten the daylights out of the lady. And he told her that he wanted his auntie, myself, to know that he hadn't gone. He was too scared to go because he believed that if he went, no one would remember him. And that just made me cry. And he told her that he knew if I knew he was the one in my house and that he was the one playing with the lights and turning music on, that he said to her, "She will send me away and I don't want anyone to forget me." And that was heartbreaking, Johnny. It was bad enough that he left us, but that was terrible. And in the end, she said to him, "Well, I can help you go to where you need to go." And he said, "No, I want my auntie to do it when I'm ready." Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
So when I came home to my own state, I contacted my sister and I thought, oh, how is this going to go? Because she was still in terrible grief. And I just had to do it, and Jax was standing beside me. So I rang her and explained, and as you can appreciate, she cried the whole time. So we set our date for her to come to my place in my sacred space, and we set up a special ceremony, I will call it, to assist Jack in leaving and knowing that no one would forget him when he was gone, but he would be able to be free, for want of a better word, to really be where he's meant to and then visit with ease. So that was a huge, huge experience.
And quite a story, too. I know it had to be very, very emotional for you and your sister.
Mm.
Does this have anything to do with your work with lost souls, or what we might call earthbound spirits? Same thing?
Absolutely.
It is.
And some of them can be malevolent. Mm.
Those are things that we try to avoid, obviously. How did it start where you were actually helping some of the lost souls or the earthbound spirits? Was Jack the first one?
Oh, no. No, this has been my life, Johnny. So, 40-something years, and as I said, encountering all sorts of interesting beings, entities, and the lost souls, and those that have had their life taken. So over the years, they just come. It's like you're a beacon, as if you have some different kind of light, or because they know that you can see them, so they will come and approach me. And the problem ones that create havoc in homes or hang around in someone else's energy and do the voice thing, when people are diagnosed as being schizophrenic because they hear voices. So my first encounter with what I will call a not pleasant soul was actually because of a young child that was terrified, understandably. And the parents called me because the child kept talking differently and saying that they were hearing someone else talk to them that they couldn't see. And that was probably my first encounter that comes to mind with a not very friendly soul. But I don't know, there's just always been an innate knowing for me that I know how to deal with them. They don't frighten me. They frighten the life out of other people. And they seem to know, like Jack knew, but they seem to know that if they come into my space or if I'm called, they're in trouble because I'll have them removed. And my favourite saying to the ones that want to be silly is, you want to do this dance with me? Do you see who stands with me? Well, let's do it. Let's do it, because you don't scare me. And I'll have you removed.
So when you remove them, where do they go? Into the lower realms, or?
They go to where they are meant to go. So it's not up to me to determine that. I will call upon specific archangels or the angels of mercy. If it is a human soul, if it is something that is not what I would call a human soul, then I call upon the sweepers of the tapestry, and they will come through. And that's something else too. That's never been anything that I read or learnt, because what I do, I haven't learned. It's just been my life. And those words just came one time when I was clearing a house. And I was like, wow, where'd that come from? And I've actually seen the angels of mercy come through to collect 2 souls from an old hospital. And that was phenomenal. I'm like, wow. It's almost like they appear on chariots and they just sweep them up and they're gone. So to me, when it is those angels, they do go to what we might call the realms of heaven. But when it is something else that's not of human incarnation or the human soul of the divine, they go somewhere else. And I generally ask they go where they belong, where they come from. And I leave it up to whoever's collecting them.
Right, but you don't really know where that somewhere is, and maybe you don't want to know.
Oh, I've been to a couple of places that I wouldn't want to step into. Pretty unpleasant. So yeah. And it's not where I belong. So even at the pearly gates, when I've met with grumpy old St. Paul, it's St. Paul, by the way, not St. Peter, that stands at the gates. And he tells me, what are you doing here? You've got no place being here. So in other words, it's not my time. And so I've been up there, and then I've been to some darker places that I prefer not to go.
It sounds like some of the beings, the angels, and even some of the guides can be a little snarky and even have a sense of humor. I've heard that more than once. Is that true?
They absolutely do. And sometimes they have an awesome sense of humor. They're an absolute crack up.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I can just imagine spirit guides that are obviously divine beings, but they still curse like truck drivers. And I can just imagine they're talking to each other and thinking, what's this idiot going to do now? You want to take him? No, I'm not doing it. You do it this time. Come on, man. I've got tickets to Prince. Can you imagine that?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I've seen the guides. I've actually seen a guide in my room throw their arms up in the air and shake their head, because the person that's come for guidance just keeps butting at it, head-butting at it, and won't accept it and wants to argue it. And then the guide throws their arms up in the air and shakes their head like, oh, can't do anything with this one.
Good to know. Humor is obviously very important. It's just it's very surreal to think of them, because for those of us that grew up, going to mass, going to church, they were really presented as something that is outside of us.
Yeah.
Whereas many mystics believe that it's within us. What are your thoughts?
Very much. That's what I call our divine essence. A lot of people do, our own divinity. We are, after all, a spark of what I call God, the creator. I will not use the word the universe, because the universe is a big place and I don't necessarily want to be part of everything that's out there. So
That's a good point.
And so I don't call upon the universe or talk about the universe having my back. I don't think so. So, yeah, we are a divine spark of God, the creator. And, yeah, we have that power. We have incredible abilities.
That's what I keep hearing. And speaking of divinity, what is it to be in divine union?
Oh, my. Oh, it's just bliss. It's to be in harmony and alignment with your divinity and the divine, with God, the creator. So to actually be able to live your life through the essence of who you are and that mighty, mighty power of the divine is the way to have a life that is free of struggles and hardships. It's bliss. You're able to find solutions to what are perceived problems. You're able to have a fuller and happier heart and a much more calm and peaceful mind. Who wouldn't want that in this day and age, Johnny?
I don't think there's that many people that would not want that, but how do we get there, or how do you assist us in getting on that path?
It is nothing short of so fulfilling to see the aha light go on with someone when I take them on that journey or they sit in one of my sessions and think, oh, so that's that little nudge that I was getting, that sign I saw the other day, that all mattered. Like, oh my gosh, that's where I go, like the guides. Oh my gosh. Um, was there a Prince concert going on somewhere? Need to go. But yeah, it's when people suddenly realize that they are always being guided, that when they call for help, they are always answered. That's the one thing about heaven and all of the heavenly beings. They can't look at their watch and go, oh, it's that Johnny again. No, look, I'm on break.
I wouldn't blame them if they did.
They can't do that. They have to go, oh, the bell's ringing. We've got to answer. People here are insistent that they're not answering me. I'm not being heard. Nothing's happening, but it is. It's just that their messages and their guidance and their pointers are very subtle because they are beings of pure love. So there's no push and grunt and noise from them. It's beautiful. And they will put people in your path. They'll even take you to a bookmark, a particular cafe, because you're going to meet someone that's going to be the answer or start talking about something that gives you the answer for what you've been asking. But people look for something as if it's out of Hollywood, waiting for the big, da-da, there's the angel out of the sky and it's going to read to you from a Bible or read you from a scroll, the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's not like that. They're very subtle, they're very gentle, and they're very quiet. Whereas we get used to listening to the noise in our mind and listen to that rather than listen for the subtlety. So when I take you to that place of meeting your own divinity, it requires you to be very still and very quiet. It also requires for you to be very open. So you've first got to be able to become aware of your own energy, what it feels like. What does your divine self feel like? And that too, because it is divine, it is subtle and yet it is magnificent. So the best way to know that you've encountered it is when you very first fall in love. And that is, so, when you've got the rose-coloured glasses on, oh, you might never have encountered that. You might have been lucky. But you have the rose-coloured glasses on where, everything is just wow. You're in touch with your divinity then. Or the birth of a baby, seeing a new baby, even a puppy, having a first puppy, that sensation that you get that is just wow, that is you in touch with your own divine self. So when you can learn to sit quietly and go to that place and start to work with it, start to expand it and really feel it fill you and get bigger than you, because of course this body is nothing compared to what you really are. So we would start that way and then learn to ask for the guidance. So you can call upon guidance from your own divine self, because that is incredible. And learn then to listen or observe. And I love to teach people to become their own observer. Observe your own life. Step back and observe how you react, how you talk, what your thoughts are. And are they fulfilling? Are they making that divine spark come alive and expand, or are they contracting it? Are you feeling tension and having issues. Because as soon as you're in tension and issues, you're away from your divine self. So then to align further with the divine is prayer, and prayer is it. It is the way of sacredness, and it is the way where you can really align yourself to the divine. And through that, it's bliss. It is simply beautiful, and it removes everything. Yeah.
It does. So in your experience, you seem to know what actually happens when we die. How did you learn that, and what do we need to know about that?
You need to know it's magical.
Really?
You need to know. If you knew just how good it was there, you probably wouldn't want to be here. But, that's you've signed up for an agreement and for time frame. So that's it.
Agreements. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. I've heard that a lot too.
Well, we do. And keep coming back because we're slow learners. So it's, even the guide's like, oh, here we go again. But how do I come to know? I know because of my encounters with souls that have departed. I've actually seen them be taken. So when a soul has been at an accident site, and I've been there, and they're standing observing their physical body, and they're at peace. They're not someone who has been kicked out tragically and wonder what's happened. That's a different story because that does happen. But they're standing there observing and looking around at the site, and then I've literally seen an angel come and take them. And it is beautiful. Jack himself, he absconded from the Library of Life in heaven. And he said it was my fault because I'd asked for him to come to his mum at Christmas time last year. And I said, no, it's not my fault, Jack. You're not allowed to leave the Library of Heaven until you've finished reviewing your life. And he said, my rules, Auntie, my way. And I said, well, I don't think so. And then all of his beautiful image started to shimmer and started to look like it was breaking apart. And he said, what's happening? What's happening? And I laughed and said, I told you, you can't break the rules of heaven. See you later, Jack. And off he went. So I've had those encounters, and then I've been able to have the vision of what heaven looks like from those souls. They show where they are and what it's like.
Okay, I'm dying to hear this. What does it look like? Are there buildings? Does it look like Earth, but just 10 times better? I've heard that there's a lot of colors that these people experience in the near-death experiences, right?
Yeah.
But colors that don't exist here on Earth.
Yeah, the colors are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So if you were to look at the blue of your shirt you're wearing and, gee whiz, try and imagine it being illuminous 50 times over, you wouldn't be close. It is incredible. But where are they? Now, this part's really interesting. Each time I've encountered a soul that shows what they're doing or what it's like, it's more like it's aligned with their life here. So if they were a gardener and loved to garden, they show me incredible gardens of heaven, and they tell me that the smell is totally different to here. So the old-fashioned rose that had magnificent perfume, which has been removed now for a reason, that is 100 times the scent when it's in heaven. But then I've seen fellows that have been farmers and they're still working on tractors and trucks in heaven.
Really?
So whether that is to comfort their loved one or whether that really is what they're doing, because I know from work with the angels and grumpy old St. Paul that heaven is bliss, and we don't have a physical body. We are simply a being of energy. So to visualize us working on a tractor or a truck, well, how would we? It doesn't make sense. But that's what they show. And the favorite the favourite things are beautiful grassy knolls, waterways, being by rivers, oceans, things like that. It's just bliss. Absolutely beautiful.
I've heard similar accounts of what some people refer to as the spiritual realm. It has many names, obviously, what you call heaven. It's good to know. You've heard this more than once. You've experienced it.
Yeah.
That's just from the mediumship path and just from your sessions and what you're able to see.
Mm.
Are you able to see things like that without going into a session, just spontaneously?
Yeah.
Or?
I learned a long time ago how to be what I say to people, just a normal human walking around because I had to. So if I go to the shops or I go to a restaurant, if I want to, I can see everything that's going on and everything that's moving through the living. Everything's living, but through those in this world, I can see it all and see different levels of being. And I don't need that. I've got to be able to live my own life. Otherwise, I'd be in a straitjacket. So I learnt how to close it out. And I've only had a few occurrences where spirit have bypassed my request that I not be disturbed or that this is not the right time and place. I had a phenomenal experience when I was away working in Kuala Lumpur, and I worked in tourism. And one of the senior fellows in the State Tourism Commission, he and I used to lock horns. We just didn't like each other. So we turn up for this dinner with all the teams, and there's 2 seats left at the table next to each other, and we were the only 2 left. So we had to sit next to each other. Neither of us were happy about that. Next minute, I'm getting this tapping on my shoulder, and it's as physical as if I was to tap you. And I turned to look, and there's Spirit standing there, and he said, "I'm his brother. I want you to give him my message." And I went, "What? No way." And he said, "You know you have to." And I said, "You've got to be joking." My God. I have a hard enough time with him as it is without telling him his brother is here. And especially we are in a big restaurant with a contingent of colleagues. And he said, "I don't care. You know the rules." I'm like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. And I said to him, "I'm not doing it. You had no right to come here at this time." And he goes, "Well, it's the only time to get your attention." Oh. So I said to him, "I will see to it, not now." And he said, "I'm not leaving, you know." I said, "Oh, no." Oh, my Lord. And I kept looking at this fellow thinking, oh, this is just not going to go well at all.
Couldn't you have just gotten one of the archangels to remove him, or at least delay the discussion until it was in a more appropriate place? Or?
That's a great question, Johnny, because, here we talk about free will and right of choice, right? It still remains in place in spirit. So he wants that conversation now. That's his free will in place. So no angel, they were there. I'm like, gee, thanks, guys. But no angel can intervene. And, and also because he had a really important message that he needed his brother to hear. This man was the target of mafia, I'll call them.
Okay, well, yeah, I get that.
And he had been a detective in his life here. So people wanted answers as to how things happened. And I thought, I actually didn't know who he was, what he was, a detective, and what happened to him when he's tapping me on the shoulder. So I had to wait for us to be in a place that I could try and approach this man. Oh, my gosh.
It must have been a neat trick.
Oh, I reckon it was the hardest thing ever. But the long story short, he ended up thinking I was the best thing since sliced bread and bought me 4 beers for himself. He comes back and tells me they're for me, but he drank them. And he just said, cheers to you. You've made a big difference. And he was so different with me after that.
Really? Okay.
It took such a lot of courage to step up to him. And he'd already had several beers at dinner. So, often it's not a good thing to talk to someone on deeply emotional things when they've been drinking alcohol.
But he accepted the message that
Yeah.
you gave him, right? Okay. It's
Oh,
pretty incredible. I'm almost tempted to ask you to be my my psychic bodyguard, just to shield me from whatever I'm not supposed to be exposed to, and like warn me of like when I'm in danger. That's probably the first time I've heard something like that. It's interesting.
well, he gave me the message in such a way that his brother knew I couldn't make it up. The validation.
I would think that's the spirits, when they're across the veil, they have a sensibility that we don't have here, and they know exactly what they need to do in order to get the message across.
They do.
That's what I've been told.
And that's where I get really peeved with people that call themselves psychics or mediums, and they may hear a spirit or the message of a spirit, but they put their own spin on it. They interpret what the spirit has said and then put their own interpretation. And to me, that's breaking universal law. And they don't have the right to do that, but many of them do. I often get sent to spiritual fairs to bust up the not so good ones.
That's a totally separate subject about how some mediums are not really trained. I mean, my thought, long story made short, I interviewed someone from the Forever Family Foundation, Bob Ginsberg, and what they do there, they certify mediums in a way where they're actually tested.
Yeah.
And the result is only about 15% actually are certified.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's that much.
My thought, for what it's worth, mediums are kind of like acting teachers. There's a lot of them out there, and a lot of them probably shouldn't be practicing. But, that's just the way it is. So how do we know, as a sitter, right, who's looking for a medium, how do we know that we're not in front of someone that is putting their own spin on it and breaking or violating universal law, as you just described?
Thank you for asking that question. That's a really important question.
I would say so.
As a sitter, if the person that you've gone to see asks you questions, get up and leave and don't pay them anything. If they are asking you questions about your loved one or anything, don't answer them, get up and leave. And if they tell you that they've got your loved one with them or they're standing next to you and they start telling you what that loved one is saying, rather than be in the place of grief, tears because you so want to hear from them, because this is how it makes it easy for these people to prey on others, PREY, is to say things that they know you're hoping to hear. But when you listen to what they're saying, you will know it's not the way that your loved one would speak. And that's something I've always had from my people or the sitters that come to me is, oh my God, that sounds just like my husband or my son or my gran. And I say, well, that's because I'm telling you exactly what they are saying. So if what's coming through does not sound the way that your loved one would speak or the sort of thing they would say, leave. You're not with a real medium. It's not their right to put their spin on what spirit is saying, their interpretation, or to change what the loved one is saying. Because to me, Johnny, it's tremendously humbling and it's a huge privilege to be able to speak between heaven and earth, to be heaven's messenger.
I agree.
And I feel it warrants huge respect respect for the sitter, and respect for the loved one that's in the next realms.
That's some of the best advice on mediumship that I've had in a while, and I've interviewed quite a few. Great stuff, Gwenda. Thanks for joining us tonight. In the meantime, how can our listeners find you online?
It's been an absolute pleasure. I love your questions. Thanks, Johnny. I could talk to you for hours.
Thanks.
People can find me online as healwithgwenda.com. That's heal, Heal, with Gwenda.com. You can also find me on Instagram. That's Heal with Gwenda Wellness.
Excellent. I will put that in the notes and the transcript as well. You've been listening to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. You can also find more information on closertovenus.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.